Usman Sahib, are we ready to begin?
Yes, please. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. On behalf of my Tabligh team, I welcome you all to this maiden event. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this function. Without wasting time, I would like to briefly introduce the chairman for this function, Dr. Azhar Siddiq. Respected Dr. Azhar is the immediate past president and the current vice president of our local Jamaat, a key member of our local Tabligh team who has always been at the forefront of our Tabligh activities, especially during our coffee mornings prior to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. May I have the honor to humbly request respected Dr. Azhar Siddiq Saab to chair the function. Dr. Saab.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Respected Maulana Tahir Selvi Saab, respected Murabbi Saab, local Murabbi Saab that is, and respected Sadr Saab, my elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, Usman Saab, for that generous introduction. We will start, as always, our functions with recitation of the Holy Quran. Can I please ask Zamrez Ali to recite a portion of the Holy Quran?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم. I just recited chapter 41, verse 34 till verse 37 from the Holy Quran. English translation is as follows. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful, who speaks better than one who invites people to Allah and works righteousness and affirms, truly, I am of those who submit wholly to Allah. Good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is best, and Lu, he between whom and thyself was enmity, is as though he were a warm friend. But none attains to this save those who are steadfast, and none attains to this save those who are granted a large share of good. Should a tribulation on the part of Satan assail thee, do thou seek refuge with Allah. Surely He is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Zamrez. Next is Hadith by Abir Mahmood Saab.
Assalamu alaikum. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Hazrat Sal bin Sa'd narrates that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu said to Hazrat Ali radhiyallahu anhu, by Allah, if Allah guides a single person through you, it is better for you than the most precious red camels. Bukhari, Kitabul Jihad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa barik wa sallam innaka hamidun majid.
Jazakallah bin Mahmud Saab. Next are the writings of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam by Hamid Zafrullah Saab, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Imam Mahdi and the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, may peace be upon him, said, a strange phenomenon event took place in the desert of Arabia when hundreds of thousands of the dead became alive within a few days, and those who had been corrupted through generations took on divine color. The blind began to see, and the tongues of the dumb began to flow with divine wisdom. Such a revolution took place in the world as no eye had seen and no ear had heard of before. Do you realize what that was? All that was brought about by prayers during the darkness of the nights of one who had been wholly lost in God. That created an uproar in the world and manifested such wonders as seemed impossible at the hands of the unlettered, helpless person. हज़रत मसीह मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम फरमाते हैं, वो अरब के बियाबानी मुल्क में एक माजरा गुजरा कि लाखों मुर्दे थोड़े दिनों में जिंदा हो गए और पुश्तों के बिगड़े हुए इलाही रंग पकड़ गए और आंखों के अंधे बीना हुए और गूंगों की ज़बान पर इलाही मारिफ जारी हुए और दुनिया में एक ऐसा इनकलाब पैदा हुआ कि ना पहले उसे किसी आंख ने देखा और ना किसी कान ने सुना। कुछ जानते हो वो क्या था? वो एक फ़ानी फिल्ला की अंधेरी रातों की दुआएं ही थीं जिन्होंने दुनिया में शोर मचा दिया और वो अजाइब बातें दिखलाईं कि जो इस उम्मी बेकस से महलात की तरह नजर आती थीं। बरकातु दुआ सफ़ा 10 तैयारा। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन व बारिक व सल्लिम इन्नका हमीदुम मजीद।
Jazakallah, Hamid Zafrullah Saab. So, I think as you're all aware, by the grace of Allah, our very special guest and keynote speaker this evening is Maulana Tahir Selvi Saab. I know you probably all know him very well, but please indulge me when I give just a brief introduction to Selvi Saab. From the information I have, and please correct me, Selvi Saab, if I'm wrong, he joined the community in 1983. And he was one of those fortunate people who was able to attend the last Jalsa in Pakistan in 1983. He dedicated his life upon his return to the UK and went to Jamia in Pakistan in 1984, where he completed a 4-year Mubashir course in English. He has had several postings by the grace of Allah in the UK, the first of which was in Bradford in 1989 for 10 years. He probably doesn't remember this, but that's probably when I first met him, when I was a medical student at Sheffield. But then he went on to Glasgow from 1999 for a couple of years. And then I think, as many of you will recall, he came to Dar al-Barkat as a regional missionary from 2001 to 2009. And by the grace of Allah, has been posted as the regional missionary for the Northeast, based at Hartlepool since 2009. And I think on a very personal basis, on a personal reflection, I've known Selvi Saab for many years, particularly while he was the regional missionary in the Midlands and based at Dar al-Bakat, particularly when I became Sadr of this Jamaat some years ago now. I always found him very helpful, very available, very approachable, and he was pivotal in helping my Jamaat to institute the successful early stages of the Jamaat's first leafleting campaign, which was started by Khalifatul Khamis, Sayyid Allah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz. And it was through this and other interactions that I learned a lot from him, and I owe him a lot for that. And what stood out for me was his passion was always there for Tabligh, and he always took every opportunity to spread the message of Islam and to train others in order to do the same. And as you will all know, he's been instrumental in compiling the online free Islamic course available to all, and he's undertaken many question and answer Tabligh sessions online also. And he will be speaking on how to spread the message of Islam and Ahmadiyyat today. So we are very privileged, we are very fortunate to have him in our presence today, and I thank him for taking the time to be with us. And without further ado, I would like to request Maulana Tahir Selbi Saab to please give his keynote address.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا هو وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And very nice to see many of the people after a long time. And thank you for those kind words, Azza. Don't really remember you in Sheffield, but I know I was looking at Sheffield. But certainly remembered you when we was at Walsall, so mashallah. Right, so today they've asked some questions. I don't know if you want to pose those questions, or do I just read out the questions myself? I'm not sure what format you want to do here. Humayun, what do you want to do?
Yeah, if you just have a natural flow to the questions and just answer them yourselves as you go along.
So you want me to pose a question and answer it?
That's
okay. I can do that if you like. Okay, so they've given me a few questions to talk about, and obviously if we've got time, then after that, anyone's got any questions or anything, most welcome to ask, I presume. I'm not sure exactly what the program is. But anyway, the first question that they've got here is, how was Tabligh an important aspect in your life for accepting Ahmadiyyat? Could you relate to any incident that has struck with you? So, I mean, when I first looked into Islam, I wasn't looking for religion at all. I wasn't interested in religion, just like most English people. Didn't really care about religion, moved away from religion, and was running after the worldly things. What happened actually was complete accident. I look at it now as how Allah guided me to Islam, but I wasn't running or looking for religion. But one of my friends turned out to be an Ahmadi Muslim, and I just asked her, what's this all about? Why are you these arranged marriages, and why doesn't actually Asians mix like most people mix? You keep a bit aloft from other people. So I think it was just making conversation at the time. I don't think I was really bothered and interested in the answer. But that person gave me the book, Philosophy and Teachings of Islam. Now, at that time, the last thing I wanted was a book. I didn't really read much at all, and certainly didn't want a book on religion, and certainly not about Islam. But what to do? So now, you know, I pose these questions, and this person's given me this book. I didn't want to upset that person. So actually my intention was that I would read the first page, read the last page, and then give it back to the person and move on with my life. But when I started reading that book, it was a very difficult book to read. And of course, as I said, I wasn't really interested in reading books. So that's not the best book to start with. But when I started reading that book, it was very, very deep. But it touched upon the 3 stages of man. And at the lowest stage was the animal self. That you just eat when you're hungry, you sleep when you're tired, and you do things because it's natural instinct. And unfortunately, that's how I felt I was in those days. That I did do basically everything by instinct and not really having any reason behind a thing. And so that hurt. You don't want to be told you're an animal. And so that made me want to read more. But because it was such a difficult book, it took a long time. And I would read a few pages, get tired, put it down. So I'll read that tomorrow. but then I'd get lost in the world. And when I didn't have anything to do, I'd look around for that book and then start reading it, getting into it again. But my eyes would get tired, and so I put it down. So it took at least 3-4 months before I had finished that book. But by the time I had finished that book, my whole understanding of Islam had changed. I now realized what religion was about, and more importantly, that the direction that I was heading in, and that I was a slave to the world. I was worried about what was happening in the world, the low moral character and things like this. And so it pricked all these sort of things, and it wanted me to change myself, change the society, and I wanted to learn more about this religion. So it took hold of me. Now, I remember that one time when my friend, that friend said to me that they would pray for me. And I thought, well, why are you wasting your prayers for me? It actually touched me a lot. I felt that they were wasting their prayers on someone like me. I was far away from God, far away from religion. But the effect of those few words really did enter into me. And I was thinking, why? Why you want to waste your prayers on me? And of course, later on, when I started studying Islam and going through the different stages of fasting and things like that, I went up to that person and said, look, how do you pray? Now, again, I was thinking at that stage, I think it was just, what you pray for. But anyway, again, that person gave me the book, Salat book. And when I looked at that, I was amazed at all these different movements and all these different words and things like this. So that shocked me, but slowly, I started to pray, I started to fast and develop myself. And over the years, it took about 3 or 4 years I was studying. But initially, when I first found out about the different sects, I didn't want anything to do with sects. I thought, okay, I just want to be a good Muslim, be as best I can. I'll follow the Holy Quran as good as I could. But I felt that what the Promised Messiah said, that made a lot of sense, and I could identify with what he was saying. And I felt he was a truthful person. I don't think he was a liar. So why would I disbelieve in him? So as I developed and got to know about these different sects, I felt that if I was going to join any sect, then it would be Ahmadiyya. But then later on, I remember my brother, he finished his university, but instead of following the career that he was studying in, he wanted to change and he wanted to get into computers and things like this. And he would get to the last 2 people, and then a younger person would get the job, and he became very disillusioned. And eventually I got annoyed with him and said, look, you're just sitting around doing nothing. Go out, get any job, just get some work, just get out there. And so he got a job in the Iranian embassy. And he was a security guard. And when they found out that his brother was a Muslim, because I regarded myself as a Muslim at that stage, then they gave him a lot of respect, and they were very happy that this person's got a Muslim brother. But when they found out that I was an Ahmadi Muslim, because I regarded myself as an Ahmadi, I hadn't gone to the mosque or anything like that at that stage, but I regarded myself by that time as an Ahmadi Muslim. So I remember they gave him a load of books to show me the right path, guide me onto the right path as such. So as I said, I was studying, but the last thing that really held me back was going to the mosque. By this time, after about 3 or 4 years, I was doing everything. I was praying, I was fasting, but it was just going to mosque. I didn't think they would accept me as an English person, and I wasn't sure about that. But at that time, even I was still doing Tabligh, and when, of course, I went to the mosque, and then, alhamdulillah, it was a wonderful experience. And then I got access to the books, the people, and of course, I was already doing a bit Tabligh, but now I could do more Tabligh. And for me, because I had gone through a lot of studying, and I had put Allah first before everything else, before going to the mosque. So now going to the mosque, I moved very, very quickly. Once I started going to the mosque, then I started getting involved and very active as such. And I remember doing Tabligh to my brother, and he said, look, you shouldn't do Tabligh until you've got some knowledge. get some knowledge, because you may say something which is wrong. But I said to him that, look, you know, the only way I'm going to get knowledge is by doing Tabligh. And through my mistakes, I learn from those mistakes and I can then present it better. So I disagreed with him. But that still, it had a impact on me that you should gain knowledge. And it is, of course, very important to have some knowledge. But the main thing, I think, is a desire to do Tabligh. And so whenever I had any opportunity in those days, then I would do Tabligh. So that moves on to the next question. Did the passion for doing Tabligh inspire you to leave England to become a missionary in Rabwa? Now, as I said, at that time, my life had changed, and now everything evolved around my religion. I worked, but it was just to get money, and I didn't really enjoy the job. But religion, that was something that really held onto me. And I wanted to not only do religion, but practice my religion, but also to help others to find the path that I had found. Now, I'm just trying to see what the question was again. Inspire you to leave. Okay, so the thing was that I used to go to the Southall Mosque, and at the Southall Mosque, because I was from Wembley, I used to go to the Southall Mosque. That was the closest mosque to me. The original mosque I went to was London Mosque, but then I used to go to the Southall Mosque. And there was one person there, he kept going on about Jalsa Salana. And the Jalsa Salana in Pakistan is a wonderful occasion. Of course, Hazur was there at that time. We're talking about 1983, and that I should go. Now, unfortunately, I had already gone to Canada and Tunisia. I couldn't afford to go to Pakistan, but I liked listening to what he was saying, and I enjoyed him relating about how the Jalsa was and things like this. But it so happened that suddenly some money came. My father sadly passed away a year before that, and there was an inheritance which came, which I knew nothing about, but suddenly it came. I said, oh, that's a shame. It was so close to now Jalsa. If that had come earlier, I would have gone for the Jalsa. But of course, Southall, that's where Heathrow is, and many of the members were working in Heathrow. They said, look, if you want to go, we'll get you a ticket. I said, get me a ticket, I'll go. So I went very last minute, in fact, so late that the Qadian Jalsa, which was held about a week before, had already finished by the time I'd gone there. And most people, I don't know if Muzaffar Clark is with us today, but he went at that particular time. And most people had already left, and they didn't think that I was coming. I left it so late. But when I went to Pakistan, it was a wonderful experience. The Jalsa was a wonderful thing. And as I said, there was 250,000 people who attended that Jalsa. It was the very last Jalsa. Had the opportunity to meet Azur. But I also had opportunities to meet some of the foreign missionaries. Abdul Ghaffar, of course, is there, and he was there in those days. And especially the African missionaries. And the idea of Jamia was being told, you know, why are you here? They told me about Jamia. And so I felt that that's the only really thing that I really enjoy, religion. And I was already being asked to do speeches. I was already doing Tabligh. Why not go and learn properly how to do this? And so it was quite a selfish thing as well, because I felt that the wrongs that I'd done in my life, maybe if I dedicate my life, that would help others be pleased with me. If I had actually bothered to study and find out what Jamia entailed, and of course, Umayya can tell you the immense studies, then I most probably would run away. But for some reason, I didn't actually prize too much into what was it. It was just the idea of pleasing God and going to Jamia. And so that's why when I came back home, I wrote to Hazur, thanked him for a wonderful Jalsa, and also dedicate my life to Hazur, to the Jamaat. So I wrote to Hazur for that. And of course, alhamdulillah, Hazur made investigations, and he found out that I was already doing Tabligh work. And so they accepted me to go in September. But of course, Hazur came to the UK in April of 1984. So alhamdulillah, I had a few months with Hazur, and then I went to Pakistan. So the third question is, did you learn anything that has stuck with you from your studies while you were in Pakistan in relation to Tabligh? that you could share with us? One of the subjects I really enjoyed was Muwazia. Muwazia is comparative religions. And Hadith, Muwazia, these were two of my favorite subjects. Now, because I was doing English medium, there was only a few teachers who were confident enough to teach in English. And one of them was the principal. His name was Atal Khalil. He was a missionary in America. He was a missionary in Germany. And he was a wonderful teacher as well. He taught us Muwazia. And there's a book, I don't know if you're aware of it, Synopsis of Religious Preaching. I don't know if you can see that. It's not a well-known book, but I would advise anybody who's doing Tabligh to get that book. It's by Atal Khalil. And basically what he was doing was he was teaching us the arguments, which is found in this book. And he would make us memorize those arguments. And every week he would give us a test on those sort of things. And just that 1 year, after that, we had many other Muwazia teachers. Nothing could touch on what he taught us. And so it was a wonderful knowledge that he gave. And that's why I'm recommending that people, if you get that book, I don't know if it's available. I'm sure it's available online. Most of these books are available online. But he had a very good way of doing Muwazia and Hadith. I used to like the way he did Hadith as well. So obviously from there, learning the arguments and how to present those arguments. And this is what I often say to people, that you should practice yourself and learn how to present the arguments and develop those arguments. And again, and going back to what I said earlier, the real way is actually doing Tabligh. Through doing Tabligh, hearing the different responses, because everyone's got a different outlook. So you learn how to do some arguments and how to present different arguments. Now, obviously, it is good to have some knowledge of how to present the Tabligh, and we should try our best to do that. So, like I said, this sort of book and other ways, it's already been mentioned, one website that I ran, and I think that was developed actually when I was in Birmingham, in Wolverhampton, with Sanauda. He helped me to make it, I think, from the paper form to the CD. And then, of course, we was trying to get it online. Now, alhamdulillah, it's online. But there was another website, which is YAmadi, www.yamadi.org. And on there, again, I've given you many different references. I would advise people that if you can, try to go to that and use that knowledge that is found there. I don't know if I'm going to get time for all these questions. I don't know how long we got, but anyway, the fourth question was, after returning to UK, what prepared you to carry out Tabligh? When I came back from the UK, the first thing that happened was I was given office duty with Imam Sahib. So I was based in Southall, and we would go to the London Mosque and be with Imam Sahib there, and did the offices, answering questions. I remember the Salman Rushdie affair was there. I had to read about what he was doing and then give an answer for review of religions and so on and so forth. And then I went 1 month to Scotland, where Badr Sahib was. So these days, like Humayun, I think, they do go to Pakistan, which is office training, and then they go to Spain and Africa for field training. So I went to Glasgow and spent a month with Badr Sahib learning field training. And Badr Sahib, mashallah, he was, of course, he was in Birmingham for a long, long time. It was his way that he would go and visit most members and try to urge them to do Tabligh. And he is very energetic in Tabligh, mashallah. And so that was very good practice for me as well, to learn observe what he was doing and how he was doing it. Of course, like I say, every missionary, they have their own ways, they do their own thing, but learning from other people is also a good way. I'm going to try and go quickly through these because I think I am spending a lot of time. Number 5, what hurdles and challenges did you face in your early days as a missionary? I mean, as I said, Tabligh is an art, and the more that you do, the more you learn. And as I said, especially when you're doing Christians and things like this, or even Muslims, or whichever religion it is, everyone has their own basic way of arguing and things like that. So by doing Tabligh, even if you've got little knowledge, by doing Tabligh, you learn and you can develop your own method of doing Tabligh. With Christians, I always found that a lot of times it actually is not according to their own teachings. So if you get stuck, I mean, one of the ways is just saying, well, the Bible doesn't actually say that, and most people don't really know what the Bible is. But find a way of presenting the arguments, like death of Jesus and things like this, and keep looking for different ways in which you can do Tabligh. There are many, many opportunities, as I mentioned about the bookstores. Now, I remember in the very early days, even when I was in Bradford, even when I was in Southwood, we started doing bookstores. But in those days, we had to get permission from the council to hold a bookstore. And they would only give you permission maybe 3 or 4 times in a year. So you're quite limited. But it was a good way of going out. And the beauty I always like about bookstores is that people come to you. You don't have to go to them. They see the bookstore, they will come to you. Again, actually, it was Badr Saab who he developed the practice, or he found out that you can actually do a bookstore where you don't need to get permission from the council. And as long as you're not selling anything, you're not creating any messes with the leaflets and things like that, you're not obstructing the way, then you could actually have a bookstore and set it up. So once we did that, then alhamdulillah, we could do bookstores. And even as I said, we used to go bookstores regularly everywhere. And we just, in fact, I used to have, I still got a small little table, and I would carry that with me with my bag, and I still do it nowadays. And if no one else came, I would still be able to set up the bookstore by myself and do it. Same with exhibitions. Again, people come to you. So this is what is, I always think, a good way, that rather than you having to find people to go to, by these sorts of methods, you can set up there. And normally with the bookstores, a few people would give out the leaflets. I would have the table, depending on how big the table is. But if it's just a one-man table, then it's a one-man table, maybe 1 or 2 people. If it's a bigger table, then more people. And ask the people giving out the leaflets to come and bring the people to us. And it was, alhamdulillah, a very good way to do Tabligh and giving out. I think what Azza was mentioning is again, obviously we had the leaflet campaign where we go door to door to the people's houses and things like that. And again, it's the same thing, that I would be quite happy to just give out even 1 leaflet if I could get a good conversation. So it's not just a question of giving out the leaflet. Some people, they just go to the door, post a leaflet. What a waste. Knock on the door, try and meet the people, try and engage in a conversation. And I've had this where I've been with one person while everyone else has gone to do maybe 50 odd houses. They come back and I'm still with this one person and having a good conversation there. So the leafleting, again, is a good way for you to meet the people and to develop or talk about Tabligh. Could you share any inspiring incidences that you have personally experienced in relation to Tabligh? I remember one time there was one person called Bob Walker. Maybe you know Adam Walker. I think he, especially with the Qadami, is quite active. Bob Walker is his father, and the family, lovely family. We was doing Tabligh with them for a long, long time. But I remember I took Bob to meet the 4th Khalifa, Rahmullah. And he said to the 4th Khalifa that I am 90% certain about Ahmadiyya, but it's just that last 10%. It seems very difficult, that last 10%. And the 4th Khalifa said to them, look, don't worry about that 10%. Actually, worry about the journey afterwards. Once you've done the Bay'at, that is more important. And when you do the Bay'at, you'll find that that 10% would just disappear. And I was thinking, alhamdulillah, he's going to do the Bay'at. But then the 4th Khalifa said that if you don't, if you hold back, then you'll find that you will go further away and it'll become 20%, 30%, 40%. So he didn't do the bat. I thought he was going to do the bat, but he didn't do the bat. And then he got posted to Mexico, and sure enough, he went further and further away. Alhamdulillah, his wife and his children, they all did the bat, and of course, when he came back, then later on, alhamdulillah, he also did the bat. In fact, the whole family did a bat. But it was that thing that Tazur said that I always think about, that it is difficult trying to take this journey to find Allah. But the most important thing is not that journey, it's the journey afterwards. And this is what we've always got to be looking at, that getting the bat is one thing, but trying to develop them and help them become strong Ahmadis. And when you see people like Adam, for instance, and how active they are in the Jamaat, then it's very rewarding. So it's not just a question of doing Tabligh. Tabiyat and following up is very, very important as well. What was the question? Expiring incidences. As I said, with the new free Islamic course, which, as I mentioned, I'm glad he mentioned that. This was something which, again, in the International Shura, which we don't hold these days, it's a shame. But anyway, even the Shura, I'd like to, if I hear something, think about it and see how to put it in practice. No need to wait for Azur to tell me if it's something good, and do it. And I remember one time there was a proposal which I thought was to learn Islam, like a course to learn Islam. And I thought that's a very good thing. In fact, the conversation turned in this shura and it went to Urdu, how to learn Urdu and things like that. And I remember speaking to a few people afterwards and saying that, look, this was my idea, that we should do an Islamic course. And they all said, yes, we'll do that. And I think I was the only one who did it. And then I started thinking about this course and thinking about how to do it. And as I said, in the early days, it was on paper form, then it went to CD, and then finally it went online. But it's still, to this day, I'm using it all the time. At the moment, I've got about 25,000 hits every month. And for you, I mean, if you've got someone under Tabligh, this is what I do. What I basically say to them is, do you want to learn about Islam? Simple, basic question. And if they want to learn about Islam, I say, right, this is a free Islamic course. You can do this course, and it'll teach you about Islam. Now, the best way is to have a one-to-one class. It can be a few people, but basically bring them in for a class. And for you yourself, whoever wants to do this, you can say to your friends that we're going to have a class, and it's online. So by all means, just go online, and you can see the first paper there, go through the paper with them, and there's test papers after that. And at the end of this first stage, there is an exam. If it's a one-to-one class, I usually print it out for them, laminate it. But otherwise, I send it online. You can give the results, they can send it to me, or you can just print it out yourself. It's not a problem. You can ask me and I can send you the things. But there's no reason why none of you can't have these one-to-one classes, or at least tell your friends to go online and have the classes. So I find that is an excellent way of being able to do Tabligh. And as I said, the other website also is very good. That if you need references, it gives you all the references you need there. You've had the 40 minutes. I don't know if you've got a 40-minute slot, but I'm going to go. If you want me to stop, just tell me to stop.
We have until about 7:15, so you can carry on talking until we go to the
Okay. Right. Well, let me try and finish these two questions left. So number 7, what advice could you give all those listening today who are hesitant in spreading the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat? The main thing is, and this is something where, you know, I was talking about this the other day about one person who was keen to go to Jamia. And, you know, you see certain people who are very pious and you think these are very good Jamia students. And alhamdulillah, I know even, I don't know about Warsaw, but certainly in the Midlands, there's been a number of people who has gone to Jamia. But I always tell anybody that the main thing I feel, if you want to go to Jamia, the main quality you need is your relationship with Allah. And that is the same thing with Tabligh, that just put your trust in Allah. Doesn't matter if you've got knowledge or not. the main thing is put your faith in Allah, and amazingly, Allah will help you. You know, the knowledge will come, other ways will come, but just put your trust in Allah. So don't be hesitant. Think about the bigger picture. Think about the society you're living in. Now, many of you are from Pakistan. You know the problems from Pakistan, and you can't do tabligh in Pakistan. Now, if you don't do tabligh in this country, that could easily happen in Pakistan. I remember when we was in Bradford, before I got there, there was an incident when I was in Pakistan where they had an incident, and the Gherandis came along and stopped the program, and they actually blamed us, although we was just a few people, but still. And we learned there the importance of PR, public relations, and making sure that we build up the contacts. Now, I remember one instance was that there was a book that came, and that book showed different religions in Bradford. So it just gave a brief description, and of course I went to Islam, and the very first one is Ahmadiyya, and the bad thing about it is that they spelled my name wrong, but anyway, but they said see other, and you go to other, and then it's got a description about Ahmadis, but see other, what does this mean? So at that time, it was in 1991, and I remember because it was the Qadian Jalsa, and the president had gone to Qadian, so the president wasn't there. So I went to the acting president and I said, look, contact these people. What is this? Complain about this. This is ridiculous. Why are they saying see other? We're not other. We are Muslims. Why are we not in the column for Muslims? And he wasn't getting anywhere. But fortunately, because we had been building up the relationships, so he was able to go to the chief executive, who was a close friend of his, and tell the chief executive that, look what you've done. You've printed this book and you've declared us as non-Muslims. And he was shocked. What is this? And then we had a close Jewish friend who was a counselor for social services. And we met her and said, look, same thing. You're in charge of this book. Look what they've done. These Muslims have done this thing, but you as a council have accepted this thing. And we went to the MPs who was opposing this book, and they were Muslim MPs. And we said, look, you're in trouble now because you've declared us as non-Muslims. You can't do that. We're going to sue you. You're going to be in big trouble. And that's the beauty of this country. You have got rights. And so we was able to overturn that, get all the books pulled, a public apology from the people, and so on and so forth. So in this country, you have got rights. But it's important that you tell people about Ahmadiyya. If you don't tell people about Ahmadiyya, Muslims will take away those rights. And that can easily happen. It has happened in some places. Some councils have managed to declare us as non-Muslims in this country. So it's important that you look at the greater picture, that this is a country you're living in, you're growing up in, your children are growing up in. You want to create an Islamic society. You want to help people to find Allah. And the only way that's going to happen, the only way, is if you do tabligh. So go out and tell the people. Now, of course, a lot of people in this country are not really religious, but I always find that first it's important to find out whether they're religious or not. But if a person's not very religious and you start talking about religion, of course they're going to run away. But talk about the society, you know, mention about things that they are interested in, about the effects of TV, about this virus and things like this. How can a little virus like the coronavirus have destroyed the world? It's brought the whole world to a stop. Such a little thing which you can't even see. Allah gives, Allah takes away. So talk about the society, and mainly get them to talk about the society, and then that will give you an opportunity to put your own views. And of course you put the Islamic views, and just talk about your own faith. But people will be interested because you've allowed them a chance to give their idea, and maybe they're stuck. You know, you pose a question that, look, what's the answer? How can we resolve these things? A lot of people don't have the answer. One of the simple questions I ask people, very simple question, most important question in your life, is what is our purpose in life? If there's a God, he must have created us. So why? Why has he created us? And most people haven't got an answer to this. They say, oh, to be a good person, or to be a nice and do good things, but they don't really know. So a simple thing like that, and you tell them that, look, you're here to develop your relationship with God, helps them to understand about religion. And as I said, for me, I didn't understand religion. That's why before Islam, I rejected religion. I didn't know about religion. And most of these people today, they have no idea about religion. They just blame religion. It's all about war and it causes problems. They don't really know. So show them through your own way, show them and explain to them what is so important about developing your relationship with God, to be a good person, and they will respond to that. Okay, the last question, how can Ahmadis of all age groups get involved in Tabligh? Right, normally with this, I will give it a simple answer. Two methods, proven methods by the Holy Prophet. The first one is, again, your example. And I used the example of Hazrat Abu Bakr. Now, Hazrat Abu Bakr, what made him become a Muslim? And the fact was that he was a very close friend of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He wasn't there when the Holy Prophet was told you were going to be a prophet. But when he came back, people were telling him, your friends become mad. He's claiming he's a prophet from God. And so he went to the Holy Prophet and he said, is it true? Do you claim to be a prophet? Yes or no? And the Holy Prophet felt that I need to explain things to him because he's a close friend. I don't want to lose him. I need to explain these things. He said, no, don't tell me. Just tell me yes or no. Do you claim to be a prophet? Yes or no? And again, Abu Bakr stopped him and said, no, just tell me yes or no. Do you claim to be a prophet? And so the Holy Prophet could see that there's no way he's going to explain these things. And so finally he just said, yes, I claim to be a prophet. And there and then he accepted Islam. Why? And the fact was that he knew the Holy Prophet. He knew that this was a person who always told the truth. He knew this was a person who loved his God, who would go for days on end to worship God. How can he now be possibly lying about the very thing that he loves the most? And so there's no way he could be lying. And so he accepted him. So it was example. And that's, again, what I say to everybody, that just for your example, show a good example, it will attract people to you. The second thing is prayer. And again, we look to the example of Hazrat Umar. That here was a person who got fed up. He was a leader of the Quraysh, and he decided that I'm going to kill the Holy Prophet. He set off with his sword in his hand, I'm going to kill the Holy Prophet. And he went past one Muslim. This Muslim saw the anger in his face and a sword in his hand and said, what's happening? Where are you going? He said, I'm going to kill the Holy Prophet. He didn't know he was a Muslim. I'm going to kill the Holy Prophet. He said, look at your own family first. Your own sister and brother-in-law are Muslims. And this shocked him. So he went to his sister's house and he barged through the door, and they were just reciting the Holy Quran. And he barged through the door and accused them, are you Muslims? And when they said yes, he went and hit the brother-in-law, but the sister got in the way. And by mistake, he hit his sister. And when he saw the blood in the sister's face, then he became apologetic and said, okay, let me read your Quran, what you're reciting. Now, this is the amazing thing. This is what people don't really think about. At that time, women didn't have any rights. No one listened to women. And yet, the bravery of this lady, that she said, no, you're unclean. Go and have a bath, and then, only then, will I let you touch the Holy Quran and hear the Holy Quran. Now, the effect of that was that it cooled right down. He had a bath, he cooled down. He was a different person coming down to when he went up. And then when he heard the Holy Quran being recited, there and then he accepted. And that's when the person came out and said, only yesterday, the Holy Prophet prayed for two people, Umar, who we're just talking about, and Amir. Amir was Abu Jahl. He said, one of these two people should become Muslims. And so it's prayer. And prayer is a wonderful thing. You should keep praying. Pray for Allah to bring people to you. And pray for your friends by name. Mention them to Allah. And keep praying. And Allah will certainly answer your prayers. So these are two things. You don't have to have knowledge. I didn't mention about knowledge. Just prayer and example. And it's two things that every one of you can do. Who of you can't pray? And who of you can't be a good Muslim? So just these two methods, you can create a revolution in this, in Warsaw even. So these are the best ways of doing Tabligh. Okay, I've talked too long. So is there any questions or anything else you want to do, or how do you want to play this now?
Jazakallah Salbi Sab. I think we're going to go to Usman Sab, who has questions that people have been sending in. So Usman Sab, could you just pose those questions, please?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to request Maulana Humayun Sab to join Maulana Selvi Sab with the question and answers that I'm going to read out. The first question it goes to Maulana Humayun Sab. The questioner asks, what is the difference between science and religion?
Okay, Jazakallah. As far as I understand, Quran and science, Islam and science both go hand in hand. I think the more you understand religion, the more science makes sense as well. I think we live in a time where people are saying now that we don't need God because we have science. But I think the lockdown, everything with COVID has proven to every single person that you cannot rely solely on science. And that is why many more people have started turning towards God and starting to pray. And this is like a new phenomenon for many people. They're starting to realize that we need to rely on another being which has more power than science itself. And so when the Holy Quran came, when the Holy Prophet ﷺ actually brought the teachings of Islam, you know, science came along with it. And we started to make so much progress in the world. We talk about the golden age where scientifically so many inventions were being made from the Muslims, from the Middle East. And so this is why science and religion both go hand in hand. They both explain each other, but ultimately it is Allah the Almighty who has power over all things, and He will reveal things in piecemeal. Especially with the Holy Quran, you know, there were many things when it was revealed people didn't understand, people didn't know what they were. But 1,400 years later, it was always written in the Holy Quran, but people didn't know what it actually meant. But when Hazrat Masih Maud came and explained these verses, you know, like all the inventions of printing press, of aeroplanes and trains, all of these things was always written in the Holy Quran, but Hazrat Masih Maud came and explained them. And that's why how religion actually explained what science was. So I think that's a short answer to your question.
Jazakallah. Now the next question goes to Maulana Selbisa. The questioner says, why don't we have female prophets or imams in Islam?
The imam obviously is the person who leads and is in front. Now let's take just prayers. Why can't a woman lead the prayers in front of men? And why are actually women segregated? And actually it's due to men, the weakness of men. We're poor folk. And the thing is that, as you know, when we pray, we need to be concentrating on the prayers, concentrating on Allah. But if a lady's in front of us and she's prostrating, we may be distracted. So this is the main reason why the women help us, because as I said, we're very weak. They help us by praying in a different room, either above, below, or behind. But husband and wife, of course, they know each other. That's something else. But because normally the prayers are done public, so therefore the women don't pray with the men. So that's the thing for the normal prayers. And it's the same as leadership. Part of the leadership is, of course, you've got to lead both men and women. And so obviously you can't do the prayers. And likewise, by leading the men, we have different roles. Although in this day and age, they like to have equality. And of course, equality is very, very important. But the roles is different. A man can't have a baby. And I'm sure we don't want to have a baby. The pain and difficulties of having a baby. But that's the role of the woman. She's made that way. Whereas a man is meant to be the earner, the provider. He's meant to go out for the work. Now, yes, of course, modern technology today, they can make many jobs very easy so that a woman can do it. But generally, it's still meant to be the man. And that's why in Islam, that even if a woman is going out to work, whatever she makes, that's hers. But the man still has to provide for her because that is his role. So equality is there, and alhamdulillah, Islam gives rights to both men and women, but the roles are different. And so the role of the man has been given to, role of Imam has been given to the man. And it's important that that remains that way. And that's why the Holy Prophet Muhammad warned us that if there's a woman who's going to be in a lead, then that's going to create problems. And of course, Hazrat Aisha was the example that when she led, there was obviously problems there, not of her leadership, but how the men again react, because we're a weak lot. And will the men accept a woman as a leader? And obviously, there can be, especially in the early days, that was a lot of problems, as I said, in the time of Umar, where his own sister stood up and told him, no, you can't do this. So that was a rare thing in those days. So, of course, we've got to look at that time and looking on. The problem we have today is that many of the problems of today's society is that society has developed in such a way. But of course, Islam was for all time, for all people. And it's got to be borne in mind of this. And so just because it can happen maybe today, the modern technology makes it easy for women to work and things like that. Ultimately, the role for the woman should have been to look after the family, look after the house. That's the main role. And anything on top of that is a bonus. But her main role should be there. The main role for the man, although there's many house husbands, but the main role is meant to be the provider. And when you change that system, it does create some problems. And I always think, I don't know, but I always think about the husband of Margaret Thatcher, that she is a leader of the whole, or she was the leader of the whole UK. How would he feel? You know, I mean, he has to now take a sub position, and that's not going against his natural role. Maybe he was fine with it. I don't know. I've never met him. But I always think about this sort of position that as the provider, you can't provide, it has to have effect. So I think this is the main reasons why Allah has said that a prophet won't be a woman and a mom should not be the woman. Of course, a woman can be a mom for the ladies, but not for the men.
I think just touching upon that as well, if you allow me, Usman, sir. And one of the greatest examples we have is of the life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Was Hazrat Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her. You know, she was renowned to be one of the most wealthiest people in the whole of Mecca. When she accepted to marry the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, she humbled herself so much to allow him to grow in his position as a prophet, and she humbled herself so much to be a spiritual woman for the whole of mankind, and serve as a wife for a prophet. You know, she could have easily said, "No, let me carry on my work, let me carry on making all the money, and I'll provide for you." But she said, "No, you are the prophet, and you're also my husband." And so she allowed him to provide for him. And I think this example in itself shows us how we should be as husband and wife with each other as well.
Jazakallah. And perhaps this question goes to you, please, if you can stay on, please. The questioner says, how can we effectively use social media to spread the message of Islam?
Yeah, I think Tahir Sabi said he also gave his own experience and how, you know, mashallah is doing so well and is flourishing. And he took an idea and he thought about it and thought how we can put it out there practically and start using it. I think the internet has been such a great tool for us, especially now, to be able to display the true teachings of Islam. But I'm sure a lot of young people are watching as well, and many people are seeing things every single day. And the whole point is that we have to try to put ourselves in a position where we are teaching other people Islam. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, going to theology and all these things and having debates. It's just about, you know, showing yourself. I think that's one thing that I took from Tarisab, your talk, is that, you know, you have to show a good example to people. And now the social media that's come in with Twitter, with Instagram, with Facebook and YouTube, and many different avenues, it just takes us a few minutes to think about how we can actually put ourselves, into that and show other people, the true teachings of Islam. One small example is Twitter, which is something everyone can do, and they talk about people being Google scholars now. Google scholars is basically something when you see an allegation, it's very quick. You can quickly go and search the answer and then give the answer. And that's something many of us can do now. We're not challenged on the spot. You can take your time, you can search the answer, you can ask different people, and then give an answer to that. And you'll see many, many different things, especially on Twitter. Whenever someone, any Jamaat channel posts something, you always see positive comments, but you also see negative comments. And it's very easy to answer them. You just have to say a few things and just post it, and that will be your tabligh done. On top of that, you can always retweet any posts that you see which are relevant to the Jamaat, which you think are personal to you. Just click that retweet button, and that will reach hundreds of thousands of people very easily. And we know we're moving now from a time of going out and physically trying to visit people because of the lockdown. But now we could, with one click, it's very easy to access hundreds and thousands of people very, very easily. So it just takes a few minutes. Set yourself up. If you don't have a Twitter account, try and make one as quick as possible. Follow all the Jamaat channels, which is very easy as well. They always recommend all of these channels to you, all of these socials to you as soon as you make an account. So just follow them. Anything that they're posting, just click retweet. And many members already are already doing this. And if you have the confidence, just try and write a few words, even for yourself, of what Islam teaches. Or if you see someone who's written something wrong, just try and answer him. Or if you see someone who's written something wrong and someone's answered him from the Jamaat, then just retweet what they've said and just like what they said. So these are some avenues which I think every single person, doesn't matter how old you are, you can do that. And it's very simple, and it just takes a few minutes of your time in the day, and it's very rewarding at the same time. So young people who are using Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of these things, just try and use it in the best way, because I think that's something Hazur Anwar is always talking about. He mentioned many years ago about Facebook and how you should use it in the right way. I think that same rule should be applied on everything. Whatever you're using, just ask yourself, am I using this in the proper way? And if not, what can I do to change that slightly to benefit me and benefit other people at the same time?
The last question goes to Maulana Selvi Sad. The questioner says that there is a notion that Islam was spread by war and sword. What is the best approach to refute this argument?
Yeah, I mean, normally, first of all, I'd explain about jihad and what is the different jihads. And obviously, the main jihad is to strive. And that striving, the jihad akbar, is to inner purify yourself, to strive to put God first, to strive to please God, and keep doing that so you purify yourself. And then, of course, doing tabligh is the jihad kabir, as we're saying, to go out and call people to God, to spread the message of God and just spread goodness. That's also very, very hard. And the least jihad is the holy war, because no war is holy as such. Now, with this particular thing, we got to look at that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, he never spread the message by sword. And what can it do? Because if you spread the message by sword, it means that you're threatening someone to become a Muslim. But you can't keep doing that. And the fact is, again, as just been mentioned, it's for an example that it was how the Muslims were behaving that won the people's hearts and spread to so many countries, so that even to this day, they're still Muslim countries. So this concept that Islam was spread by the sword, it's not right. As I said, with the Holy War, and this is what I keep emphasizing to the people, there are two conditions for the Holy War. One is it's got to be defensive, you cannot be the aggressor. And the second, it's only about the right to worship God. It's not even about winning. It's about the right to worship God. When you see wars for oil or property or land or whatever reasons, this is not a holy war. They should not attach this word jihad to it. Call it for what it is. It's a war, but it's not a jihad, not a holy war you're doing for God. So if you explain this to the people, that what is a true jihad, then they can understand more about how Islam was spread. And you can show them then that, look, every war of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, it was defensive war. It wasn't aggressive. He didn't go out to spread Islam or anything like that. It was defensive war because once Islam started to get more and more powerful, the big nations of the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire became to take notice and became afraid. And so they were trying to stop Islam from growing. So it was defensive and not aggressive. Of course, you know, the three basic wars with the Quraysh, every time it was aggressive and it was not defensive. So the Holy Prophet had to defend because the Quraysh was attacking him. So this is not right where they're saying that Islam was spread by the sword. Maybe later on some Muslims did get to that way, but they were doing it for their own back. It's not for what we call a holy war. So the true Islam is never spread by the sword. And you can't, as I said, you can't keep it there. Because once you take that threat of the sword away, then people are just going to run away. You have to win the people's hearts. And if you win the people's hearts, then they stay Muslims forever. And that's what's happened.
Jazakallah. This is where we will draw the curtain for the question and answer session. Chairman sir.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So Jazakallah, it's a pity that that's come to an end. I'm sure we could have listened to this for a lot more time to come. Just as some closing reflections and remarks, obviously a very inspiring, very insightful address by Maulana Selby Saab. Thank you for sharing that personal progressive journey that you had to Islam and Ahmadiyyat and how Allah blessed you so many times. And I hope this inspires many of our youngsters to take inspiration from the reflections on your life and your personal experiences. And I would say again that one of the things you mentioned about learning from experiences, just very briefly, is that when we started to do Tabligh with yourself, Selby Saab, doing stalls in Walsall town centre, at that time as there is now, we had many positive experiences, but because of all the opposition to the Jamaat, we also had many negative experiences. But as you said, it was about learning from every experience, which you helped us to do. And also we learned from you how you dedicated your time and your energy to new converts, and how you cared for them, which is maybe something we didn't do so well in the Jamaat before that. So Jazakallah, may Allah bless you so much. You have given us many precious indicators in how to do successful Tabligh, and I'm sure we can take many of those with us today. And thank you for sharing your valuable experience and knowledge with us today. So with that, I would close my remarks, and I would request Maulana Jahangir Saab maybe to give some final remarks as well.
Yes, Jazakallah, Dr. Saab, and thank you so much, Tahir Selby Saab. It's always a pleasure having you as a colleague and also as a very close friend. We've known each other for a long time, but just getting to hear your life and your whole journey, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, it really makes us feel, breaks that barrier, makes us feel much closer. And it's a very, very a personal touch, being able to speak about your own life. And I'm sure every single person who logged in today will take full benefit from that journey that you've had. So I'm praying, inshallah, that we're able to extract the knowledge that you have given us today, that we're able to take it and try to practically use it to the best of our abilities. And inshallah, I hope and pray that, we are living in a difficult time, but it doesn't mean that the work stops. It means that we have to find different ways of getting the same results. You and I have both studied in different jamias, but our goal is the same. And that goes for every single person as well. So Jazakallah, thank you so much for your valuable time. I think you're such a busy individual, but the fact that you're able to accept our request so quickly shows shows the kind of character that you are and how you're always willing to give back to the Jamaat. So Jazakallah for that as well. So I'll pass back to Osman Sab to conclude this session, please.
Alaikum. I would like to request Maulana Selvi Saab to give us a closing prayer.
Okay. Jazakallah for setting this up, and it's always a pleasure. And like I say, it's always good to see so many close friends again. It's been a little while since I was in Warsaw. I can't remember. I think it was the last missionary meeting was the last time I came to Warsaw. But it's good to see everybody again. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Please join me in silent prayer. Okay, Bismillah. Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.